Yeah,
Okay.
I'm letting everyone in.
Hello. Good morning. Happy new day.
Let me
Josh, I'm very humbled by that introduction. I appreciate all the hype. I hope I live up to it. Um, Both of my parents, serial entrepreneurs. My earliest memory is of my mom and dad working in a pet store that they had started, and we. I have three other siblings. One that's much older than me, two that are younger than me, and so the two that are younger than me and me, we're in the pet store in the back room, causing mayhem, trying to figure out what to do with our time, and we somehow or another always found ourselves playing games where we were running businesses. And so, an example of this in the bio was everybody would get a whole pile of Legos, and then you had to figure out what to build. You'd build your store, and then what products would you put in it? So, obviously, I always had the pet store and the government and the gas station and all the things that everybody needed because my siblings weren't as astute at that age. Um, but that's kind of where it started. I watched my dad work for a company for 20 years, and one day, without warning, that company was bought up by another one, and that division that he worked for was shut down, and he was given a pension and left to his own devices. And so, on top of running the pet store and helping my mom and keeping things running there, he just dove headfirst into a at least a dozen other enterprises, ventures, and things like that. So from a very young age, I was kind of afforded this opportunity, unique, that I could see how the world worked if you didn't play by the rules. And so, because of that, in school, middle school, high school, and that sort of thing, I didn't really fit in. I was always kind of the rebellious type. I kind of fondly refer to myself as a grown up emo dad now. So there was a lot of turmoil in that uh, era of my life, and I found my peace in making music. My dad bought me a guitar. I learned how to play a few songs, and then eventually, a couple of bands and that sort of thing. But it never really stuck. I moved out of my house, and when I did that, that really impacted my brother. And so what happened was, um, around that time, there was this movie that came out. I don't know if y'all seen this movie or not. It was called Hustle and Flow. In it, in it, we discovered how seemingly easy it was to make hip hop music, and so my brother said, "Hey, let's give this a shot." And he was working at Petland at the time. Took his 2 week paycheck, went down to Future Shop, bought us a keyboard, and we started making music. So um, we got a little better, we got a little better, and eventually a couple other people wanted to try to join us and get involved. And so I started recording a little bit here, a little bit there. Eventually, a couple of people needed my time at the same time. And so I said, hey, listen, highest bidder wins. That was the entrepreneurial version of me coming out. So somebody said, I'll give you 25 bucks for an hour. I said, yeah, let's do it. And a business was born. That evolved into an independent hip hop label where I helped artists create their brand, build their marketing, their website, their media. And this was back when you could sell CDs out of a trunk. So we would take a boombox, go down to the bar. There was like a strip downtown where all these bars were, and drunk people pouring out into the streets at 12 o'clock at night. They're a little looser with their pockets. So we were able to sell CDs and perform on the streets and kind of do our thing. And so that evolved. And, it was a struggle with that and a second business that me and my dad were kind of building on the side, which was photography for real estate agents. So we turned that into a full suite of services
Sure.
for realtors and that sort of thing. And so I was kind of juggling both of these things, learning a ton as I go. Um, and eventually, I kind of got tired of the photography gig. It was kind of capping my income, and I wanted to make more money and, use that to kind of fuel my music career. And um, I'm sure, as you've heard the saying go, starving artists is, is what I came to intimately understand is that there was a lot of those, and that wasn't paying my bills. So I took what I call my transferable skills there, and I decided to start a marketing agency. That started with me creating a podcast and putting my name out there and interviewing a whole bunch of people. I eventually found a partner who then was no longer a partner, but we kind of started the media company together and had a couple of really solid gigs. And then I hit a wall, and everything kind of came crumbling down. We were doing really, really good, and then I lost one of my major contracts, and then in spite of my greatest efforts, I could not sell a package. Just lost everything. If it weren't for my dad supporting me through that kind of year of chaos, I only ended up making like I think $20,000 that year. So it was just a struggle to get by, and I was hustling and grinding and couldn't figure it out. So went back to the drawing board. I I would like to hope so because this was the pinnacle moment, It's that if you imagine a scene in a movie where the hero or the person you've been following along with is kind of like on their knees in the rain. The whole world is crumbling down around them. Like I really truly felt like that was my situation. Like in spite of everything, I was married and divorced. I had a son and like all of these life things are all happening at the same time and it just feels like there was absolutely no way out. And so there was a I'm calling it a moment, but really it was a series of internal conversations that I had with myself where I had to make a decision between do I stop what I'm doing here and give up and get a job and just, collect a paycheck and kind of put all these dreams and things, to rest? Am I done with this? Did I give it a valiant enough effort? And so these were the moments where um, I kind of discovered meditation and prayer and why all of that mattered. And uh, as many times as I would pray to God and meditate on this, the question I always ask is, what do I do? What do I do here? Where am I going? What's happening? Why am I going through all of these things? And why can't it just be easy? And the only answer that I ever heard spoken to me in the Word of God was just keep going. You're doing the right thing. Just keep going. And in spite of all that, like I didn't get any answers. There was never any like some no divine voice that said, "Here's exactly what you need to do." Da 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 da. And I'm reminded of a story that somebody shared with me where you imagine you and the creator sitting down and deciding on who it is that you're going to become. The version of you that is kind of the hero of the story at the end of all of it. And you ask for patience. And so God says, okay, good. Well, I'm going to give you a lot of really difficult things to go through so that you can figure out how to be calm and be patient in a storm. And okay, well, I want to be resilient. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to give you some really, really hard things to fight against and make you feel like you're going to give up so that when you don't give up, you prove to yourself that you become resilient. Okay, we check that box. Well, I want to be strong enough to get through that. And the Lord said, okay, well, I'm going to give you a lot of demons to fight, and you're going to slay these demons, and then on the other side, you're going to become stronger for it. And so that, in hindsight, looking back, is how I kind of seen all of these things come together for me and where all of the transferable skills started to connect and where the business really started to get legs. And so that's what I found to be the kind of eye-opening thing was like it's all of these challenges, all of these things that you have to be up against, that you have to face, that you have to go through. That's you earning the prize that's on the other side. And so the magic, the thing that you're looking for is actually on the other side of the hardest thing in front of you to do. The one thing that you don't want to be doing, if you can just grate your teeth and bear it and pile drive through that thing on the other side of it is that thing that you're looking for. And that's what I call the 1% effect. Only 1% of people are willing to push through that thing. And if you see yourself as that 1%, then you have to push through that one thing or whatever that difficult thing is that you're facing right now. Mm, mm. I came across this accidentally, I think by some divine intervention. So, this is post my divorce. I am really going through it. Business is failing. I'm not making enough money. High level of stress and the anxiety and the depression and all those things are kind of knocking at the door, and it's starting to take a toll on my body. Um, I had a moment where I thought I was having a heart attack. I went to the hospital. They hooked me up to all the wires. Turns out it was just a really, really bad panic attack. But I was kind of warned that if I continued down this path, that there are some signs that are showing that I'm gonna have more health difficulties as I go. And so they kind of, I don't know if you have ever dealt with the hospital and anxiety, but they just kick you to the curb and wish you luck. There's really nothing that they can do, and it's not their fault. It's just the way the system is. And so I took to YouTube as I normally do. If I don't have the resources, I go find something. And I don't know what I'm looking for, but I can't sit idly by and suffer. I got to do something. So I started Googling, looking, and I come across Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this man. He is an absolute magician. He is incredible. If you haven't heard of him, go look him up, spend some time with him, watch all of his stuff. There is some science, not it's not just woo-woo stuff. There's some deep level science behind the things that he shares. The punchline, or kind of the Cole's notes of it is um, if you've ever thought about the placebo effect, when you go and you're doing these double blind trials or whatever, and you're testing something, sometimes people taking a sugar pill will get the same result as people taking the actual pill. And so Dr. Dispenza thought about, well, why is that? Why is that happening? What's going on there? And the the discovery that he makes is that we, just as much as we can think ourselves into stress and headache and pain and anxiety and all these other things, and then that causes us disease and cause like actual physical manifestations in your body. The equal and opposite is also true. So if you put your time and energy into um, thinking about what it would be like if all of the positive things came out, or all the positive things were true, your body doesn't know the difference between that and reality. Just like your body doesn't know the difference between that and reality when it comes to thinking about stress. We all do this. Something's happening in your life, and you start having that conversation in your head. You know what? You got to deal with a conflict with a friend or a family member, somebody you love, and you're kind of talking, and then you say what they say, and then you say what you say, and then it goes back and forth, and now you're stressed out, and you can feel your heart racing. That right there, that's what you're doing that creates that stress and unease and unwanted and all that negativity in your body. You can do exactly the opposite. So here's what I did as I started practicing meditation. And instead of focusing on all of the terrible things that were going on in my life, the question that I would ask myself when I was in that mode is, what would it feel like if I was already a millionaire, if I already had people that I was helping, if I was already doing something positive in the world? How would my body feel? And so that became my meditative practice. And in doing that, I started showing up differently. And I'm gonna tell you exactly why. If I look back at all of the things that happened, here's the real breakdown of this. This is the real science of it. Our thoughts are just loops that we create, and those thoughts become the things that we believe. And we're really, really good at convincing ourselves of stuff. So if we're having these thoughts and we keep looping on the negative things, of course the belief is now that whatever negative is true. And so our thoughts form our beliefs become our habits become our outcome, and that's the life that we have. And so if our thoughts now are on what would it be like if it was something good, then that becomes good beliefs. You start to believe things good about yourself and about the world around you. You believe that there's actually good people out here who aren't going to take advantage of you, who are willing to work with you, who are going to make a difference, who are going to play along, and you guys are going to create something incredible and amazing. And so if that's your belief, then you go out in the world and you attract those kind of people to you by accident. They just come to you. You start having conversations and they see that light on in your eyes. They feel that energy that you're kind of exuding because it's coming through you now. You become a conduit for this positivity. And so now, because that is your belief, your habits become you having those conversations, and having those conversations and doing those things becomes the life that you're meant to have. That's that positive, that good thing. So that was my experiences. When I'm down, I'm in the mud, everything's falling apart. I started searching. I need resources. I need tools because I believed, at the very least, I was capable. I believed I was at the very least capable of figuring something out because I have evidence. I have all this undeniable evidence through my whole entire life to show me that, hey, when times get tough, I've made it this far. And I think that's true for everybody. If you're standing here, you're sitting here, you're in this Zoom room right now, the evidence that you have is that you've made it this far. In spite of all of the stuff that's happened to you along the way, you've made it this far. So if that's evidence, then you can use that to fuel whatever's next, whatever that roadblock is in front of you. So that was how I kind of overcame that. Hmm. Hmm. You know, the first thing that helped me was to just look at my story. We all have this thing that we're telling ourselves, a story that you keep repeating to yourself in your head about how you come from here to here. And I get the instinct to have and want and desire a story. All great things that have happened for great people come from great stories. And so we work to like manufacture this story as we're going through our lives. So if you're not aware of that, I think that's the first step. Just become aware of the story you're telling yourself. And once you become aware of the story you're telling yourself, you're going to become aware of the story you're telling other people, right? And I don't know if anybody's ever had this experience, but I want you all now to just pay attention to the story you tell other people and the purpose behind you telling that story. Okay? There's two reasons why we're going to tell a story. One is because we want validation. We want to make sure that other people understand the shit that we had to go through to get to where we are. We want them to feel bad for us. We want them maybe to support us, to come and comfort us. We want them to do something, right? There's something that we're doing, and that's a selfish thing right there. Telling the story for your benefit. You're going to get something out of it when you share that story, right? So this is who I am. This is all the things that happened to me. This is where I've come from, and you better respect me because of all of those things. And I hate to break it to you, but demanding respect from somebody is not the best way to go about getting said respect. Respect is something that is inherently earned. And I know
We
we all have this kind of weird relationship with it. But once you become aware of the story and the reasons why you're telling it, if it is selfish, you can change that. You can correct that. You can fix that. So here's the opposing thing to that. Here's the other reason why you can tell a story. You can tell a story to help somebody else. So the stories that I'm sharing with you today are not for my benefit. They're not here for me to get validation from you guys and have a reassurance that I am who I think I am because I already know who I think I am. The stories that I'm sharing with you, as you have kind of already realized, is all of them have a lesson. There's a punchline at the end of them. There's a thing that I have packaged up inside of that story that I'm giving to you that you figure out as I'm going through that story. And it's that's so much more valuable because you working through it and finding your way to that lesson, to that thing, shows that you've invested into it. You've invested into uncovering what that lesson is, and now it's your lesson. It's no longer mine. And so that's the power of a really, really good story. That's the power of being able to tell that thing. So that's the thing right there is if you become aware of the story that you're telling and you figure out why you're telling that story to people and you do it less selfishly and more to give to other people, people are going to see you differently. They're going to interact with you differently. That is you now, your cup runneth over, pouring into other people. And if that's true, then all of those things where you felt like where scarcity was true, where you didn't have enough or where you thought you weren't enough, that was a false belief. You were holding on to something that just wasn't true. And all it took was just that simple reframe. And now all of a sudden that is flowing out of you. And so you see these people who kind of go out all in the world. Why are they so happy? Why are they so at peace? Why are they so calm and powerful? And it's because they're not out looking in the world to take. They're not out here sharing a story to get something from you, to get that validation, to get that thing. They're out here sharing these stories and they're giving these things and they're making people have a good time because the energy is flowing out of them outward into everybody else. And I'll tell you this, your happiness or happiness in general is the default setting. It isn't that high thing that you feel, when you go on a roller coaster or if you go to Disneyland, or it's not that birthday night where you're the most special person on earth that day. It's not, that's not happiness. That's peak excitement. Happiness is your default baseline. And so if you can just recognize that level of where you're at, then you can pour out into other people. And it's in that act of service to other people where I don't know about you, but or where I'm the most fulfilled is when I have a chance to give to other people or when I have a chance to share with other people. Now, granted, I hear the little voice in the back of your head that's going, "Hey, what about those people that are out here taking advantage of me?" That's transactional. If people are taking advantage of you, it's because you expected something in return. And so you weren't actually giving, you were transacting. So if you actually want to give, you have to give without expectation. Now, here's the tough part, right? So who gets to decide whether or not you're being taken advantage of? You do. You get to decide how much energy you want to pour out into people. And now here's what happens, okay? I'm going to give you an example. I met a young man in my career who was an aspiring rapper, and he really wanted to do real good in the world. He wanted to change the world, and I started working with him. I started helping him out, and eventually, I started to figure out that the story that he was telling himself was that he had to do all of these terrible things to be able to build street cred or whatever, to be this image of the gangster that he was trying to portray in the music. And he couldn't say these things without actually being these things. And so the pathway that he was on was self-destruction for the purpose of making music. And I realized I couldn't support that. So at some point, I'm trying to help him. And this was back when I was still working for free. I'm trying to help him. I'm trying to help him. And he wasn't following a pathway that was in line with mine. And so I had to make a decision there. Do I keep following this pathway? Do I keep giving to this person who isn't using it for good? Or do I cut it off here and then I move somewhere else? Now, that part's really difficult when you have to start saying no to somebody, especially somebody you've built a relationship with, especially somebody you care about, especially somebody you love deeply. And so it's not, and here's a really important distinction to make. It's not about cutting people off with malice. It's not about cutting people off and punishing them. It's not about trying to teach them a lesson because they took advantage of you. It's about preservation of your energy. And if your energy is being poured into somebody who's holding a hand over their cup, why do you keep pouring into that person? You have no responsibility to continue to pour into somebody who's doing this with their cup. Your responsibility, your God given gift, the thing that you're here to do is to pour into somebody who's ready. And so some of you maybe in this room are ready, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to pour whatever I have into your cups. And if you're getting some of this and you're collecting it, awesome. Also, if it's overflowing and spilling all over the place, perfect. That's kind of the goal. And hopefully that'll be enough for you to now go out into the world and do something and kind of pour into other people's cups. So it's that part right there. I just want to try to bring it all the way back here. So it's that part when you become radically honest with yourself. When you become radically honest about the story that you're telling, about the energy that you're giving out into the world, how you're doing that, and not in a transactional way, in a genuine way that I actually want to help people, and I'm going to find as many people to help. And then inevitably, because you're doing good, because you're pouring into other people, the consequences of that are that you will be taken care of. End of story, point blank, period. If you do good, you will be taken care of. Just like, and follow me on this one, hey, if you go to the mall and you put on a ski mask and you pull a hammer out of your backpack and you start smashing the jewelry counters and you take all the jewelry in there and you run away, what's inevitable here? You're going to get caught. You're going to go to jail. You're going to have to do some time and repent, and then you're going to have to come back and rebuild a life. That's inevitable. So when you take terrible actions, terrible consequences happen. Just like when you do good, it is inevitable that good things are going to come to you. Now, it's not instant, And this is the problem with us is when we do something good, we're like, okay, where is it? Where is it? We're looking around for all the good to come back to us. And the problem is we've set a timer, and that timer sometimes it takes a little bit to get that ROI. It takes a little bit to give that back. Because here's the thing, right? If God wants to give to you, right? If the universe wants to give to you, if God's not your thing or whatever, if God wants to give to you, they want to make sure that they're not giving to somebody who's going to mismanage that or use it for bad or do bad things, right? And so the timer exists to keep the balance in the universe, to keep everything the way that it is. And so when you make that deposit, when you make that investment into the world, and when you're pouring out into other people, the timer exists as a buffer so that you're not trying to trick the system. And there's going to be some points in time there when you go through that where you're going to feel like, oh, hey, this might be disingenuous. This might feel like I'm doing this just to get the reward. And so there, you're going to have to battle with that one. That belief that's in you is, I'm doing this and I'm going to get something bad, and now I feel guilty for it. I don't know how many people struggle with that. I know I do. I feel like sometimes, even like I'll use our relationship right away here, with Josh and Leisha. I started having this conversation with them at the very top, and I was like, hey, I can do this, I can do that, I can help you. Um, and then they said yes to me, and I'm like, damn it, I tricked them into giving me their money. Isn't that a weird feeling? Like, isn't that a weird thing? But Josh, Leisha, can you help me help other people kind of see, did you feel like I tricked you into giving you money, or do you feel like I brought something valuable here and I'm doing good and I'm serving you? Like, was there a fair exchange? Is that, can we say that? Or Mhm. I'm gonna say D, all of the above. Now, some of this is more and some of it is less, but the first and foremost, right? The first thing that happens is if your belief is that you don't deserve money, or money is bad, or people who have money are evil, right? That one, millionaires and billionaires, like, oh, they're the bane of the existence of the earth and da da da. All of that, that belief is also how you're going to see yourself. And now, if that's your belief, if that's what you believe to be true, then you have already closed the door and you said, universe, I don't want anything. I don't want resources. I don't want money. I don't want things. I don't deserve them. So, this is that act of, if you judge somebody else, you are also judging yourself. And so I'll use this as a perfect example. I don't know if you guys love Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, or, I'm trying to name some of the controversial figures out there. I don't know if you love or hate them, but love or hate them, let's just remove the name for a second and just look at this one person, okay? Jeff Bezos had a silly idea in his dorm room to create a website that sold books to people. And you could get on there yourself and you could sell your used books, or you could get on there and sell new books. And at first, he went with big publishers, who, Barnes and Noble or whatever, they would publish their books on there. And he started selling books. And it worked. It worked really, really well. And eventually, he decided to, hey, can we open this up to other products? And so he started bringing in new products and other ideas and other things. And then there was a couple of things that, people were coming up against. Trusting the internet back then was impossible, right? There was no way we were trusting the internet. buying something off of the internet and then it getting to you and then it not being the thing that you want, then you have to send it back. Like that's a huge headache, right? Or what if buying something you gotta wait 3 weeks for it to arrive? Ah, that's a problem. I'm not buying something. So Jeff Bezos looked at all of these problems. I'm sure he had a team of advisors as well. He was smart enough to build that team of advisors. By the way, just for the record, like you have to be intelligent enough to realize that you're not the end all be all so that you can build your own team to do these things. But that's all beside the point. Okay. So okay, we got all these problems. We can't ship things quickly. It's hard to trust, da da da, all those things. So he set out to solve those problems. And what did he do? He built factories or warehouses, not factories, warehouses in major cities all across the United States and all across Canada. Now, I don't know if you've ever built one of these buildings before, but they're huge and they cost a boatload of money. So he had to take his money that he earned and spend it on that thing. And then he had to put people in that building to do their job to do a job. And he paid them well to do it and still pays them well. I don't know if you guys know this, but Amazon pays really, really well when you're in that ecosystem. Anyways, so he sets out to solve all of these problems. Now, you're gonna say Jeff Bezos, he's greedy, he's got all this money, he's building rocket ships, and he's playing with toys and da 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 da. I'd make the argument that any little boy's dream is to eventually grow up and have enough money to play with big rockets. So like he's living the dream. That's pretty good. That's really awesome for him. I'm happy for him. I don't feel angry at him for doing that just because I don't get to. All beside the point. Jeff Bezos took a really, really big problem and then he solved that really, really big problem. So now you can go on your phone and you can pick one thing that you really like. You can send some money to somebody and that thing will arrive on your door the next day. That's a huge problem that he has solved. And so I make the argument that he should be rewarded for solving that problem. So, how much do we reward him for solving that problem? Are we all willing to give him 10 cents every time we buy something? If we're willing to give him 10 cents every time we buy something, then that equals 350 million people in the United States, another 50 million people in Canada, times 10 cents. That's a lot of money. But he's only getting 10 cents from each one of us. And I don't know if that's a greedy thing or a bad thing or whatever. So, okay, now let's go like this. The universe or God, whoever was, rewarded Jeff Bezos for solving this really, really big problem. So now what does he do? He goes out and he takes all of that money that he has and he creates more opportunity for other people. If he didn't go to Utah and build an Amazon facility, there are 30,000 people there that would not have a job right now, that would not be able to put a roof over their head, food on their table, or heat and electricity in their house and take care of their families. So, how evil is he really? If we look at it from that lens, the same thing exists for all of these other big, big, big guys that are out there. Sure, they got a big pocket of resources, and it's because they worked really, really, really hard to get that big pocket of resources. So, this is what all of that is to say your belief about that person. How you see that person is how you see yourself. And that's the block that's stopping you from getting the resources you need to solve a bigger problem. If you don't think that you should be paid $2,000 a month to be a consultant for somebody, then you're not going to get $2,000 a month to consult with somebody. That's because you don't think that your information or whatever it is that you're giving to somebody is worth $2,000. Now, there's two things you can do there. First of all, if you've gone through the things, you've learned the stuff, you can genuinely help people, I make the argument that you should get the resources to be able to help those people the best way that you can. And so, you just have to say that to the world calmly, confidently, peacefully. And you will be rewarded for doing that. Now, you do have to live up to that expectation. You do have to solve the really big problem. If Jeff Bezos wasn't able to figure out how to put a factory in every single major city or a warehouse in every single major city, then he wouldn't have been rewarded. That would have been the end of the story. He would have never been able to buy or sell books or do all these other things. He would have never been able to build rockets or do this or do that. It would have been the end. So he did still have to solve the problem. So there's the it's a little bit of all of the above. It is your belief in who you are. It's your judgment of other people that's affecting you. And then that's what's going to create your beliefs. That's what's going to create your actions. That's what's going to create your habits. So that's one of those beliefs that you might want to deconstruct or reconstruct in a way that's a little bit more beneficial. So money's not evil. Sure, evil people get money, but not all people with money equals evil. So if you don't want to be an evil person with money, then be a good person with money. That part too. Yes, that's a part. Mhm. And it's not for their benefit. It's for your own benefit because you're judging somebody else, you're judging yourself. That's not your task. This is a really hard one. There's a book that goes way, way, way more in depth than this, and I'm gonna try to pin it together for you. But it's The Courage to Be Disliked. The idea here is that you are only responsible for your tasks. You are not responsible for somebody else's tasks. And so here's what it is. It is my task to be a good person and do good in the world. It is somebody else's task to also do that thing. And if that person is not doing that thing, it is not my task to correct that. It's not my job to fix that person. If that person wants some guidance, wants some support, wants some love or help or insight or whatever, and they're willing to accept what I offer, then that becomes my task. My task becomes pouring into somebody else. Now, what happens after that is not my task. What they do with that is not my task, right? If I have a hammer and you need a hammer and I give you the hammer and then you start using the hammer incorrectly, that's not my task. I can't use the hammer for you. Now, if I give you the hammer and you're not using it properly and then you come back and you're like, dude, this hammer's broke, then I can be like, hey, have you tried it like this? That's my task. Not my task to hammer things. It's just my task to do my best to support somebody who's using the thing that I gave them. Does that answer the question? I got a question in the chat I just wanted to answer. Even when it's someone like a loved one, we just turn a blind eye. No, you don't turn a blind eye. You let them go down their path. That's their path. That's their experience. Try as you may, you cannot tie somebody up and force them to do a thing just because you love them. In fact, I make the argument that it is your responsibility to let them fail, as painful as that might be to watch, and then your task might be to sit in the mud with them. That's love, right? I love this one, man. Unconditional love means there is no condition. It doesn't mean that if you're nice to me, I'll love you. It doesn't mean that if you're angry with me, I'm going to stop loving you. It doesn't mean if you treat me poorly, I'm going to stop loving you, right? But I can't love you this close if you're on fire. I have to take a step back from the fire, right? If you're going to be on fire, I got to be back. When you're done being on fire and you want me to put you out, if you're screaming and hollering and you need some help, I'll bring a bucket and I'll dump it on you. But it is not my task. You set yourself on fire. Now you have to do something. You have to take the action. You have to run to the water. You have to do whatever, right? And I can keep doing, and this is a perfect analogy. If I keep throwing water on you, but you keep setting yourself on fire, at what point do I go, hey, listen, I'm tired. This other person's on fire and actually needs my help and is willing to take my help. So it's not about whether or not you love them. You can still love them, but you can love them from a safe distance. And then when they're ready to take responsibility for their tasks, then you can come back. But that's the part there where you have to make the distinction for what unconditional love means for you. Right? It doesn't like for me and my son, this is a beautiful thing. I don't know if any of you have kids, but my son loves me unconditionally in spite of all of my failures. And I'm telling you, I'm not I have failed to live up to the image of what dad is in my eyes so many times. So many times I've dropped the ball. And it's in those moments now that I got to look back at like the story that I'm telling myself. And here's a nice real wrap around is I'm telling myself, oh, I'm such a terrible dad and I'm this and I'm that. And then I go and I sit with my sister. I'm like, oh, I'm such a terrible dad. And then she comes in and she's like, oh, you're not a terrible dad. And it makes me feel better. Now I go back and nothing changed. I'm still a terrible dad. right? So there's that one. Or the reality, and this is the one thing that this is what I do is what's the hardest thing to do in that moment? Say I yelled at my son for something that he did, but it wasn't something that he did, and now I gotta own up to that, right? Or even worse, let's say I say something really, really mean to my son because I'm in the heat of the moment and I was out of control and I didn't have my emotions in check, and so I said something or I called him an idiot or whatever it was. Oof. What do I do in that moment? Do I start justifying it to myself? Yeah, well, he was being an idiot. He should feel bad for being an idiot so that he doesn't be an idiot anymore. And I can make all these justifications. But what I'm not recognizing is that if we look at this from the perspective, oh, I'll tell you this story afterwards. What I'm not realizing is that I've already done the damage, and now I have a choice. Do I do my best to repair the damage, right? Or do I let him just keep having that? And so the hard thing for me was we do this check-in thing every night. We do 10 minutes of snuggles. We just kind of hang out. Sometimes we just watch some YouTube. Sometimes we talk about his day. Sometimes there's something going on that he wants to chat, but I'm always available at least for that 10 minutes a day, regardless of how much I've done or all the work I do. If I'm away, I call, he calls if he's away, blah, blah, blah. So I said to him, I'm sorry for calling you an idiot. I should not have done that. That's it. No justification, no telling him the reasoning why, no telling him all the things he did wrong to cause me to call him an idiot. Hey, I called you an idiot and I shouldn't have done that. And I'm very sorry for doing that. That's ownership. Yeah. Now that doesn't make it better, right? That means now what do I do in the future as I move forward? What do I do to make this better? Okay, so here's the story that I was going to tell you. Every day, a young boy and his father would get into a fight, and the young boy would say something terrible to his dad. And as a punishment, his dad made him go out to the fence and hammer a nail into the fence every time he said something mean to his dad. And after a while, there was a ton of nails in the fence, and the son kind of like realized, oh, I'm doing a lot of bad things. And so he came back and he said to his dad, "Hey, Dad, I'm really sorry for saying all those bad things." He said, "Son, I accept your apology, but I want you to understand something. Come with me." So they go out to the fence, and they both bring a hammer and they start pulling out the nails. And while they're doing that, the father is having this conversation with his son, telling him, "Hey, listen, sometimes we get caught in the heat of the moment, and we say and we do things that we shouldn't be doing, and it's really powerful for you now to own up to that and do something about it. Um, Now I want you to just take a step back and look at the fence with me." And now all of the nails are missing from the fence, but what's still there? All the holes. So you can do your best to pull the nails out, but it doesn't mean the damage isn't done. And so that means it's really, really, really important for you to be cautious and aware and intentional about all the things you say. Witches call it spells, Christians call it a prayer, atheists call it science, and Buddhists call it manifestation. It's all the same thing. You have to be true to your word, and your word has to be impeccable, and you have to be very, very cautious about all the things that you say and speak into the world because that is what brings the world. That's what creates the world around you. And if you guys are like, if you really want to dig into the science on this, I'm not saying this because it's woo woo and it's the Bible or whatever. You want to know the science? Look into quantum physics. Look into the two slit experiment and look into how when we observe, it changes. When we are looking at things, when we observe something, that becomes the reality. Particles, all the things that exist in this world, what they are nothing until we observe them. And when we observe them, they become something. And the matter is turned into something that we can interface with, right? So that consciousness, that thing that's kind of driving right now, that's what's creating your world. That's what's creating your beliefs, right? So this is all a part of it, but it's not just this woo-woo stuff. It's science. So if there's one thing you're going to write down today, quantum physics, look into it. It's not as difficult as you think it is. There's a lot of really great tutorials out there that'll just kind of show you what's going on behind the scenes. And as soon as you see that, it's going to change everything that you're up to. Yeah. Yeah. You know what's really interesting about this whole thing, and I don't know if you guys can recognize this, but as soon as you start becoming a practitioner of these things, it does feel like magic. It does feel like a superpower. It feels like something that you have that other people don't have. It's this awareness that's always kind of just humming in the background that you're like, oh my goodness, I can see now all of the things that I've done, my beliefs and all that, and I'm now observing it out in the world, how other people's limiting beliefs are keeping them held back, and I'm observing how other people, and this one's the fool's paradox, right? Is the dummy never knows enough to judge himself and stop himself from doing something. And so we always find that these, seemingly bumbling people are in positions of powers because they never let their beliefs get in the way of that, because they probably didn't even have them to begin with. They were just so ignorant to the fact that it's not possible, that it was the only option was what's possible. And so that's the thing, is you kind of see this as a superpower now in the world, all of the people that are around you, and it creates more opportunities than anything else. So sometimes I'll meet somebody like you two, and we'll just hit it off right away. I can see the spark. I know you can see the spark. We connect. There is authenticity in our interactions, and it just makes it that much easier for us to work together because we already kind of are vibrating in the same frequencies. Other people who aren't there yet, that this is where the magic or the superpower comes in. You can use this now to help them see something that they won't see in somebody else. And so when you have two of those people who aren't kind of connected to the thing and they talk, they're very transactional about the way that they talk. But when you come in, you can still have that kind of transactional level where you meet somebody where they're at, and then you can bring them down, or ascend with them into whatever that energy or vibration or frequency is. You can bring them to that level just in the way that you're communicating with them, and just the way that you're having those conversations with you, especially when it comes to the business stuff. And I know we've used a lot of time kind of talking about the beliefs and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to leave you guys high and dry. I have something really awesome for you at the end of this. But um, when it comes to the actual business and the execution, and doing these things, this is going to show up in so many ways. It's going to show up in the way that you brand yourself now. It's going to show up in the way that you create your marketing materials. It's going to show up in the way that you get on calls and have sales conversations. It's going to show up in the conflicts that you have with clients that you and that person just aren't seeing eye to eye. Because that happens frequently. This just happened to me the other day. I took on a client, I signed him, he got the contract, he paid the invoice, then we get on the strategy call, and he was trying to do this one thing, and I come in and I'm like, hey, listen, that one thing, you've been doing it for 8 years, and I can see a steady decline. It's not working anymore. It's time to abandon it and do a new thing. And so what I did was I just took his thing and reframed it into a different thing. And the entire conversation that went on for about 45 minutes was him telling me how wrong I was, and still holding on to this thing that wasn't working. And so, what do you do in that situation? How are you going to navigate this conflict? Because somebody who doesn't have proper communication skills is going to see everything as a conflict, right? But if I'm armed already with this type of information, and I'm clear in how I'm going to be able to articulate my thoughts to this person and help them see something that they don't already see, it doesn't look like conflict to me anymore. It looks like a fun game that we get to play. And so here's what happens is that it gets heated a little bit, and then we diffuse. And once you figure out that pattern and how to do that, now you show up differently in all of the relationships that you have. It's not just in business. It's in your relationship with your spouse or your or significant other. It's in your relationships with your siblings, and it's in your relationships with your friends, or I don't know, some of you here might have challenges that you face with your parents. It's in those relationships too. It's in the being able to finally forgive your parents for doing a terrible job when you realize like they were just you 30 years ago with no tools, have no idea what they're doing. This is what happened with me and my son. I'm not sure if you can pick up on that, but true story. I show up, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. How did my dad do this? And then I realized, oh my God, my dad was just a dude doing the best he could with what he had. And it's not to diminish the incredible stuff that he's done, but it's like, oh my God, now I can completely relate to that. Now I completely understand. And that gives me the tools now to navigate through all this stuff. So that's the difference is how you show up now in all of the conversations that you have. You now have a superpower to be able to manifest whatever it is that you want to come out of that. Sometimes some people just want to watch the world burn, right? Sometimes you're going to meet somebody who is their only objective in life is just to hurt everybody around them. And that's okay too. I have a saying, beware the perpetually unlucky because their luck is contagious. Stay away from those people. It's okay. You don't have to help everybody. You got to help the people that are ready for you when they're ready for you. And that's your mission. That's the thing that you get to do. That's what's going to be the thing that you're excited to wake up for every morning now. Every morning you wake up is an opportunity now to go find more people that you get to help. And that's the challenge now is like, how am I going to do that? Do I got to make content? Do I got to write blog articles? Do I got to do this? And it might be challenging, right? But that's the 1% stuff that you get to do. Not that you have to do. You get to do this. It's a very simple reframe, right? I got a list of it's not my to-do list. It's things I get to do. And in anything that anybody tasks me with, I put it on that list. It's a thing that I get to do to serve other people. So all of that too, and I just want to make sure before anybody kind of ducks out of the conversation, I know we've taken a lot of your time, and I'm very grateful for all of you being generous with your time. Um, I have kind of built some frameworks and things like that that kind of tie in with all the stuff that we're talking about here, that breaks down how to go about positioning yourself and setting up that messaging. And then not just that part, like your brand strategy and all that. It goes down a little bit deeper into that. If anybody here kind of came more for the business stuff, this is the thing that I said I don't want you to leave empty-handed. Um, it goes into full-blown marketing strategy across all the different ways that you can bring people into your world online, how to execute on all of those things, breaks it all down across a like an 8 day sort of email crash course, completely 100% free. I want to just give it away to everybody that came here today, if that's going to be helpful. Um, I want to make sure that you're still armed with actionable stuff because we talked a lot about the high level thing. So now let's take this high level stuff and go do something meaningful with it in the world. Take it, go use it. If at any point in time you're kind of going through this stuff, you'll have my email, you'll have my phone number, you call, text, or email, or whatever. I'll make myself available. There is a couple of places where I will invite you maybe to jump on a call with me to see if there's something that I can do to help you if you have the resources. If not, I'll do whatever I can to support you. Josh and Alicia are a testament to that. I'm really truly here to serve and do the best that I can. And I'm going to prove that. And I'm not just going to say that. And so the first thing is that. So I'm going to put in the chat a link here. Um, yeah, the only way to realize the life that you're aiming at, the thing, the dream that you want to come true, is to understand that it already exists. It is already looking for you. And the only reason it hasn't found you yet is because you haven't been ready to accept it. And so, as soon as you open up to the idea that you are worthy of whatever it is that you're asking for, and that you have the ability to serve wholly and truly from a place of love with your full heart, that is what's going to bring the thing to you. That's what's going to bring this life. And so, starting today, the practice is imagine it's already here. How would you feel? All the stress, if you already had $1 million in the bank account, you had a mansion, you had the boat, and you had the significant other and the kids and all the whatever it is, whatever the dream thing is that you're after. Imagine what it would feel like if it was already here. You wouldn't be stressed out anymore. All this anxiety wouldn't exist. Everything would feel like a puzzle. Everything would feel like a game. Everything would feel like it was fun and enjoyable and exciting to try. And I get that your whole life leading up to this point, maybe you missed this part of it, and so it's going to be really challenging for you to have that reframe. But I'm going to say this right now. Already having the information, already knowing some of the stuff that Josh and Lisa is sharing, some of the stuff that I've shared with you today has already changed your picture. All you have to do is just see it now. You just have to keep looking for it, keep finding more evidence, and build up an undeniable stack of evidence that you are who you think you are, and that you're showing up in the world the way that you want to show up. You don't have to have all of those things in order to be the person that you're meant to be right now. You just have to be the person that you're meant to be right now. And that comes from asking yourself in the most difficult of situations, even in the easy stuff, how would the best version of me show up here? You're fighting with your husband, you're in an argument with a friend, you're doing whatever, you're doing some business or something like that, and it's hard, and you're like you're ready to yell, or you're ready to give up, or you're ready to whatever that is, and you know what your natural reaction is, or what action has been programmed into you over years and years and years. You already know what that is. And so just stop it right there for 1 second and go, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Because this is a hard one, right? Wait a minute. What would the best version of me do right now? If the best version of me was here right now, what would they do? And then, as hard as it might be, take the action, right? I'm, I'm, I'm having a conversation with my girlfriend. This is like the first 6 months that we were together. And it turns into a bit of a heated thing. And then I say something and I sniped. I was like, yes, I hurt her. I knew it. And I storm off. I slam the door, and then I face palm. I go, oh, this isn't the thing. This isn't the thing. And I sat there with myself for probably what seemed like an hour or a day, but it was only a few minutes. And I was like, this isn't who I want to be. And that's it right there in that moment. This isn't who I want to be. And you know it. You know that it's happening. And the difficult thing is to go back and own it because it's embarrassing. You have to admit that you're wrong. You have to look like a fool. And you have to be okay with that. And so what I did was I stood up, I opened the door, I walked back out, I knelt down on the floor in front of the chair that she was sitting in. I said, "I'm sorry." I said that, and it was very hurtful. And then I let her have that. There was no justification. There was no saying anything. There was no making a reason for why I did the thing. This is another perfect example of that. You just have to catch yourself in those difficult moments and then prove to yourself that you can be the best version of yourself. And the more you do that, the more you stack it up, the more powerful you're going to become, and the more you can manifest goodness into your life. Thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thanks for taking your time out of your Saturday to sit here and listen to me ramble. I really appreciate it. Um, the link that I threw in the chat there with the crash course, just take crash course off the end, and there's a whole bunch of free stuff there. Whatever you need from me is there, and I'm very, very accessible and easy to get a hold of. So I'm not one of those talking head gurus that disappears now, and you'll be talking to 10 of my salespeople. It's me on the other side of the email, I promise. Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna, I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I would be open to doing a Q&A if anybody had anything specifically themselves that they wanted to ask. I'd be happy to lend a few more minutes for that. Yeah, Emily was on the quick draw there. You got something?
I got one. Yeah, it's been sitting there percolating the whole time you're talking. I'm just
Fire away.
like, number one, your boombox in the background is so amazing. I was captivated as soon as I saw your background. I was like, that's amazing. So my question is, I am seeing multifaceted angles of myself, and I've been able to narrow it down to like four pillars of who I am. And so whenever I go to brand, I my brain splits. And I'm
Mm.
like, am I the first pillar, the second pillar, the third pillar, or the fourth pillar? Or instead of it being an either or, can it be a yes and where I can blend those four pillars into one brand that equally describes who Emily is?
Yes. The simple answer is yes. So imagine all of the things and all of the experiences that you've gone through in your life, kind of leading up to who you are right now. All of those things are just as important as uh the information or the package or the thing that you're selling or whatever it is. All of it cumulatively equals who you are. And so I'll use an example with one of my clients.